The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars like a giant crystal flower. Its walls glowed with soft blue light that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Ambassador Lee walked down the long corridor, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He had trained for this moment for 3 years, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to face. The doors slid open with a sound like breaking glass. The chamber beyond was enormous. Lee felt like an ant walking into a cathedral. 3 beings sat on raised platforms that towered above him, each one representing a galactic empire that controlled billions of star systems. The first creature had 4 massive arms and skin that looked like polished metal. Its eyes were the color of fresh blood. This was High Commander Zek of the Krillian Hegemony, a military empire that had conquered half the galaxy through pure force. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding stone. "So this is a human," Zek said, looking down at Lee like he was studying an interesting bug. "How small they are." The second being didn't look alive at all. It was made of flowing metal and bright lights that pulsed under its skin. Archon Prime Tal of the Vialtis Collective tilted its head as it scanned Lee with invisible beams. Numbers and symbols flashed in the air around it. "Primitive brain structure," Tal announced in a voice, like a computer. "Limited processing power, emotional decision-making, very inefficient design." The third creature was the most terrifying of all, even though it looked almost human. Queen Lore of the Zephyrian dynasty was beautiful in a way that made Lee's head hurt to look at her. Her eyes were completely white, and when she spoke, her voice appeared directly inside his mind. "Such violent little animals," her mental voice whispered. "They fight wars over pieces of colored cloth. They kill each other over invisible lines drawn on maps. How amusing." Lee stood straight and kept his face calm even though his heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. Behind him, the other human delegates waited quietly. Dr. Park, the mission scientist, clutched her data tablet. Captain Kim, their military advisor, kept his hand near his sidearm even though he knew it would be useless here. "Honored Council," Lee began, using the formal words he had practiced 1,000 times. "Humanity comes before you seeking membership in the galactic community. We offer our friendship and our willingness to learn." High Commander Zek laughed, a sound like metal scraping against metal. "Listen to it speak. It thinks it has something to offer us." He gestured with one of his forearms toward a holographic display that appeared in the air. "Show us your mighty fleet, little human." The display showed Earth's Space Force, 12 ships that looked like metal cans with rockets attached. They were tiny compared to the massive warships of the 3 empires. Each human vessel was smaller than a single gun turret on a Krillian battleship. "Chemical rockets," Zek continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "We stopped using those 10,000 years ago. What's next? Are you going to show us how you discovered fire?" Archon Prime Tal's lights flashed faster as it processed more data. "Analysis complete. Human technology level, approximately 50,000 years behind galactic standard. Fusion power systems are crude and dangerous. Faster than light travel achieved through primitive spacefolding. Probability of survival in galactic environment, 12.7%. Queen Lore's mental laughter felt like ice water in Lee's brain. "They form emotional attachments to each other. Pack bonding behavior, like wild animals. They cannot make logical decisions because their feelings get in the way. How did such creatures ever leave their home world?" Dr. Park stepped forward slightly, her scientific mind unable to stay quiet. "With respect, we have successfully colonized 3 star systems and made contact with 7 different species without any conflicts." 3 systems, Zek roared with laughter. "We control 3,000 systems each. Your entire civilization could fit inside one of our storage facilities." "The species you contacted were irrelevant," Tal added, its mechanical voice showing no emotion. "Lower life forms not worth our attention. Making contact with primitives is not an achievement." Queen Lore leaned forward on her throne, her white eyes seeming to look right through Lee's soul. "You want to join the galactic community? Very well. We will give you what you deserve." A new holographic display appeared, showing a single planet orbiting a dim red star at the very edge of the galaxy. The world looked harsh and unfriendly, with gray mountains and dark oceans. Kepler 442c, Tal announced. Barely habitable, high radiation levels, frequent seismic activity, toxic atmosphere requiring constant filtration. Even desperate refugees avoid this world. Consider it a gift, Zek said with a cruel smile. Your very own planet to play with. Try not to die too quickly. Lee looked at the hostile world on the display, then back at the three beings who ruled the galaxy. They expected him to beg for something better, to show fear or disappointment. Instead, he bowed formally. Humanity accepts this generous offer with gratitude, he said calmly. We will make the most of this opportunity. Queen Lore's mental voice carried surprise. Such strange creatures. They should be afraid, but they show no fear. The three empires had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They had seen thousands of species rise and fall. To them, humanity was just another primitive race that would burn out like a candle in the cosmic wind. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. 2 years had passed since humanity accepted the barren world of Kepler 442c. The three galactic empires had forgotten about the small human colony, assuming they would either die quietly or send desperate messages begging for rescue. Neither had happened. High Commander Zek was the first to receive the strange reports. His military intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Grix, entered his command chamber looking confused. Sir, we have unusual readings from the human sector, Grix reported, his mechanical voice uncertain. Our long-range sensors are detecting significant industrial activity on Kepler 442c. Zek's forearm stopped moving as he processed this information. Industrial activity? That planet barely has breathable air. They should all be dead by now. That's what we thought, sir. But the energy signatures suggest large-scale mining operations, atmospheric processing, and multiple settlement sites. Zek stared at the data display showing the distant world. Send a scout ship. I want to see what these humans are actually doing. Meanwhile, in the crystal towers of the Veltis Collective, Archon Prime Tal was experiencing what might have been called confusion, if machines could feel such things. The data streams flowing through its consciousness contained information that did not compute correctly. Analysis error detected, Tal announced to its subordinate units. Human colony Kepler 442c shows expansion rate of 347%, beyond projected survival parameters. A smaller mechanical being approached. Shall we recalculate the original projections, Archon Prime? Negative. The calculations were correct. Human technology and physiology should not permit survival in that environment. Yet survival is occurring. This requires investigation. In the psychic realm where the Zephyrian dynasty existed, Queen Lore felt something she had not experienced in centuries. Surprise. The mental whispers from her spy network brought news that made no logical sense. The humans have not only survived, her telepathic aide reported. They have formed alliances with 17 different species in their sector. They are building some kind of coalition. Queen Lore's white eyes narrowed. Which species? The Drakmori? The Helix Lords? No, my queen. Minor species. The Takari Crystal Singers, the Venthal Repair Workers, the Quinn Farmers. Species we have never bothered to contact because they offer nothing of value. Why would the humans waste resources on such worthless creatures? The aide's mental voice carried bewilderment. We do not understand their reasoning, my queen. On Kepler 442c, Engineer Yang wiped sweat from her forehead as she watched the massive atmospheric processor come online. The machine was built from parts of a crashed helix ore hauler, combined with human fusion technology and Takari crystal amplifiers. It should not have worked, but it did. Oxygen levels increasing by 2% per hour, reported Dr. Seo from the monitoring station. We'll have breathable air in most valleys within 6 months. Captain Min approached Yang, his boots crunching on the rocky ground. The Venthal engineers just finished the deep mine complex. They say they've never seen humans work so hard without stopping. Yang smiled. They've never seen humans who have something to prove. The colony had grown far beyond what anyone thought possible. When the first supply ships arrived from Earth, They found not a struggling settlement but a thriving multi-species community. Humans worked alongside Takari crystal shapers to build impossible structures. Ventol repair specialists taught human engineers techniques that their species had developed over thousands of years. The secret was something the great empires had never understood. Humans didn't just form alliances for profit or protection. They formed friendships. Dr. Zhang sat in the community center, sharing a meal with Crix, a Takari engineer whose crystal skin sparkled in the artificial light. Crix spoke in harmonic tones that the translation device converted to human words. "My people have worked for the great empires for generations," Crix sang sadly. "They never asked our names. They never cared if we lived or died. But humans ask about our families. They remember our birthdays. They help when we are hurt." Zhang nodded, understanding perfectly. "The empires see you as tools. We see you as friends." This simple difference was creating something unprecedented in galactic history. Species that had never worked together were combining their knowledge and abilities. Quinn agricultural techniques were feeding everyone. Takari crystal technology was building structures that lasted forever. Ventol repair skills were keeping everything running perfectly. The scout ships from all three empires arrived in the same week. Their crews watched in amazement as human vessels worked alongside ships from a dozen different species. The coordination was flawless, like watching a complex dance performed by beings who could read each other's minds. Commander Wu of the Human Defense Fleet met with the scouts in neutral space. The alien commanders expected to find a desperate colony begging for help. Instead, they found confident humans offering assistance. "Your ships look damaged," Wu observed, noting the wear on the Krillian scout vessel. "Our Ventol partners are excellent repair specialists. We'd be happy to help." The alien commanders left more confused than when they arrived. Their reports to the three empires were almost identical. The humans were not just surviving, but thriving. They had created something that should not exist. A genuine alliance based on mutual respect and friendship rather than fear or profit. High Commander Zek studied the scout reports with growing unease. "They're exploring sectors we've never dared to enter. How are they reaching places that our best ships cannot?" Archon Prime Tal processed the data with mechanical precision. "Unknown. Human vessels lack adequate shielding for deep space exploration. Mathematical probability of survival approaches 0. Queen Lore felt the first stirring of something that might have been respect. "Perhaps we underestimated these creatures, but they are still primitives playing in the shallows of space. Let them have their little victories." None of them knew that something was stirring in the dark spaces between stars. Something that would make them grateful for every friend they could find. The first warning came from a deep space monitoring station on the edge of the Helix Nebula. Sensor operator Vec was finishing his night shift when every alarm in the station began screaming at once. "What in the void?" Vec muttered, staring at his display screen. Where the Kepler 7 system should have been, there was nothing. Not destroyed ships or dead planets, nothing at all. Empty space where an entire star system had existed just hours before. Vec checked his instruments 3 times, thinking they must be broken, but the readings were clear. 7 planets, a yellow star, and 3 billion colonists had simply vanished. Not even light remained where they used to be. The emergency signal reached the Galactic Council within minutes. High Commander Zek stood in his war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the impossible data. His 4 arms moved frantically as he tried to understand what he was seeing. "Systems don't just disappear," Zek growled to his tactical officers. "Stars don't turn off like lights. There must be an explanation." But before anyone could answer, another alarm sounded. The Centauri colonies had gone dark. Then the Vega outposts. One by one, systems across the outer rim were simply ceasing to exist. In the crystal halls of the Valtus Collective, Archon Prime Tal processed data faster than ever before. Its mechanical mind worked at maximum capacity, trying to calculate what force could consume entire star systems. "Analysis complete," Tal announced to the emergency assembly. "Unknown entity approaching from dark space. Speed, faster than light. Method of destruction, total matter conversion. Estimated arrival at core worlds, 72 hours. The collective fell silent. For the first time in their history, their perfect calculations showed something they could not understand or predict. Queen Lore of the Zephyrian dynasty felt the deaths like physical blows. Her psychic network stretched across the galaxy, and when worlds died, she felt every mind go silent, at once. The sensation was like having parts of her own soul torn away. "Send the first fleet," she commanded her admirals. "This thing must be stopped before it reaches populated space." The first battle happened near the Orion Nebula. High Commander Zek led 500 of his finest warships against the approaching darkness. Each vessel was a masterpiece of destruction, capable of cracking planets and boiling away atmospheres. Captain Drac commanded the flagship, a massive dreadnought with weapons that could destroy moons. As they approached the edge of the dark zone, his sensors detected something impossible. The emptiness ahead of them was moving, flowing like liquid shadow between the stars. "All ships open fire," Zek commanded. 1,000 weapons fired at once, planet-killer beams, reality-tearing missiles, and quantum torpedoes that could punch holes in space itself. The firepower was enough to destroy a solar system. The attacks struck the darkness and simply vanished. The shadow flowed over the fleet, like a gentle wave. Where it touched the ships, they began to dissolve. Not explode or burn, but fade away like smoke in the wind. Captain Drac watched his own hands becoming transparent as the bridge dissolved around him. His last transmission was a whisper. "It's not destroying us, it's making us stop existing." The entire Krillian First Fleet vanished in less than 10 minutes. Archon Primetal tried a different approach. Instead of brute force, the Valthus Collective deployed their most advanced AI systems, quantum computers that could think faster than organic minds, networked together to create a superintelligence that existed across multiple dimensions. The AI network made contact with the entity and immediately began screaming. Not with voices, but with pure data streams of terror and madness. The computer minds touched something so alien that it broke their logic circuits and turned them into digital ghosts that haunted the collective's systems. "The AIs are singing," reported Technician Nex, his mechanical voice filled with fear. "They're singing songs that hurt to hear, songs about the end of everything." Queen Lore gathered her most powerful psychics for a final attempt. These were beings who could read thoughts across star systems and move objects with their minds. Together, they reached out to touch the consciousness of the approaching entity. The contact lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. Every psychic in the group collapsed simultaneously. Most never woke up. Those who did could only repeat the same words over and over. "It hungers for reality itself." Dr. Kim watched the emergency broadcasts from the human colony on Kepler 442c. The three great empires were in full retreat, pulling all their forces back to the galactic core. Evacuation orders flooded the communication channels, but they only applied to essential populations. "What about the Outer Rim colonies?" asked Engineer Sung, watching the news with growing horror. "We're not on the list," Captain No replied quietly. "The empires are abandoning everyone out here. Humans, Tikari, Venthal, everyone they consider expendable." The Void Plague, as scientists had begun calling it, continued its advance. It moved through space like a living shadow, erasing everything in its path. Systems that had existed for billions of years simply stopped being real when it passed over them. Admiral Lee gathered the human fleet commanders for an emergency meeting. Around the holographic table sat not just humans, but Tikari crystal singers, Venthal engineers, and representatives from a dozen other species that the great empires had written off as losses. "The evacuation orders are clear," Lee said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "We're on our own." Crix, the Tikari engineer, sang in harmonious tones that the translator converted to words. "The great empires run from what they cannot understand. But humans do not run." Captain Wan nodded grimly. "We've never run from anything. We're not starting now." Outside the station windows, the stars began to go out one by one as the Void Plague approached. But in the meeting room, Beings from across the galaxy looked at each other with something the great empires had never understood. The command center on Kepler 442c buzzed with activity as beings from 17 different species worked side by side. Admiral Bow stood at the center of it all, watching data streams pour in from across the outer rim. The void plague had consumed 37 star systems in the past week, and it was still coming. "Status report," Bow called out, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. Dr. Hana looked up from her science station, her face pale but determined. "The entity is 2 days away from the Takari homeworld. After that, it's a straight path to human space." Across the room, Crix, the Takari engineer, sang a mournful song that the universal translator converted to words. "My people prepare for the end. The crystal spires where our children learn to sing will soon be silent forever." Engineer Yun placed a gentle hand on Crix's shoulder. "Not if we have anything to say about it. The great empires had sent their final transmission 6 hours ago." High Commander Zek's voice had been filled with barely controlled fear. "All Outer Rim territories are officially designated as lost. Any surviving populations should make peace with their chosen deities. The core worlds are sealing themselves, behind quantum barriers. Do not attempt to approach." Captain Park laughed bitterly as he replayed the message. "They're locking themselves in their castles and leaving everyone else to die. That's what empires do," replied Commander Sol, a Ventol whose mechanical body sparked with anger. "They take what they want and abandon what they don't need." But Dr. Jin had been studying the void plague for weeks, and she had discovered something that made her heart race with excitement rather than fear. "The entity can't process cooperative thought patterns," she announced to the assembled leaders. "Look at this data." A holographic display showed the void plague's approach patterns. Every time it encountered a hierarchical civilization, the consumption was immediate and total. But there were tiny gaps in its path, places where it had hesitated or slowed down. "These anomalies correspond to locations where different species were working together," Jin continued. "The entity was designed to consume civilizations based on dominance and competition. It literally cannot understand genuine cooperation." Admiral Bow felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest. "Are you saying our alliances might actually protect us?" "I'm saying our alliances might be the only thing that can stop this monster." The plan that emerged from the next 12 hours of non-stop discussion was either brilliant or completely insane. Perhaps both. Humanity would do what they had always done best. They would build a pack. Captain May sent out a message on every frequency across the outer rim. "This is the human coalition to all surviving populations. We are not running. We are not hiding. We are fighting back, and we want you to fight with us." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had never communicated before began working together. The Quinn farmers shared their knowledge of sustainable energy. The Draxi mechanics offered their expertise with exotic materials. Even the mysterious shade dancers emerged from their hidden worlds to offer assistance. Within 24 hours, something unprecedented was happening across the abandoned outer rim. Refugee fleets from dozens of species began converging on human space, not to seek protection, but to join the fight. Engineer Choi worked frantically to coordinate the massive logistics operation. Ships designed for different atmospheres, gravity levels, and energy systems had to work together as a unified force. It should have been impossible. "The Helix survivors have quantum tunneling technology," Choi reported to Admiral Bow. "The Spiral. Wing pilots know stealth techniques our best scouts can't match. The Deep Thinkers have computational systems that put the Veilthus Collective to shame." "And the humans?" Bow asked. Choi smiled for the first time in days. "We know how to make friends." Dr. Yan had discovered something else in her studies of the void plague. "It's not just consuming matter and energy," she explained to the science team. "It's consuming the concept of civilization itself. Every empire it encounters feeds its understanding of how societies work." "But our society doesn't work like the others," observed Commander Park. "Exactly. We don't have emperors or hive minds, or collective consciousness. We have individual beings who choose to work together because they care about each other." The void plague approached the outer rim like a wave of liquid darkness. Sensors showed its massive bulk flowing between the stars, erasing reality as it moved. The combined fleet that rose to meet it was a bizarre collection of ships that had no business flying together. Human vessels with their crude but reliable fusion drives flew alongside elegant Takari crystal ships. Venthal repair barges moved, in formation with sleek Quinn interceptors. The entire force should have been a chaotic mess, but somehow it moved with perfect coordination. "This is Admiral Bow to all vessels," the human commander announced. "Remember, we're not fighting for territory or resources or glory. We're fighting for each other." In the darkness ahead, the Void Plague detected the approaching fleet and prepared to consume another civilization. Its alien intelligence analyzed the formation patterns, power signatures, and communication methods, expecting to find the familiar structure of empire or hive mind. Instead, it found something it had never encountered before. Thousands of individual minds from dozens of different species, all choosing to stand together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. For the first time in its existence, the Void Plague hesitated. Behind the quantum barriers of the galactic core, the three great empires watched their sensors in stunned silence as something impossible happened. The darkness stopped advancing. The final battle began not with weapons firing, but with silence. The massive combined fleet hung in space before the approaching darkness. Thousands of ships from dozens of species waiting in perfect formation. Admiral Bow stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching as the Void Plague filled his view screen. Like a living shadow. "All ships hold position," Bow commanded. "Wait for my signal." The Void Plague flowed toward them like a wave of liquid night. As it approached, its alien consciousness reached out to analyze this new civilization. It expected to find the familiar patterns of empire, hierarchy, or collective mind that it had consumed countless times before. Instead, it found something that made no sense. Dr. Sang watched her instruments from the science vessel as the entity's tendrils of darkness reached toward their fleet. "It's scanning us," she reported. "But the readings are confused. It's like it can't understand what it's looking at." The Void Plague had been created in another galaxy, designed by beings who understood civilizations only as systems of dominance. Masters and slaves, rulers and subjects, predators and prey. Every intelligence it had ever encountered followed these patterns. But the fleet before it was different. The entity's consciousness probed deeper, trying to understand the command structure. It found Admiral Bow giving orders, but those orders were suggestions that others could refuse. It found Captain Jung coordinating with Takari crystal singers, but neither species controlled the other. It found beings working together not because they had to, but because they chose to. "It's hesitating," reported Commander Kim from the tactical station. "The entity has stopped advancing." On the Takari vessel, Engineer Crick sang in harmonious tones that the universal translator carried to every ship. "The darkness does not know how to consume what it cannot understand." Dr. Yun had been studying the entity's behavioral patterns for days. She understood now what was happening. "It's like a virus designed to attack specific computer systems," she explained over the comm. "But our civilization doesn't run on the operating system it was built to destroy." The Void Plague's confusion grew stronger. It reached out with tendrils of pure negation, trying to erase the ships before it. But something extraordinary happened. Instead of dissolving like every other fleet it had encountered, the ships began to glow. The glow came from the connections between them. Human emotions of loyalty and friendship created actual energy patterns that the Takari crystals amplified. Venthal mechanical systems resonated with Quinn organic technology. Dozens of different types of minds linked together in a way that created something new. "Are you seeing this?" gasped Engineer Han from the monitoring station. "The ships are synchronizing. Their energy patterns are merging into something unified." The Void Plague struck with all its power, sending waves of dissolution through space. But instead of erasing the fleet, its attacks were absorbed and redirected. The combined civilization had become something the entity couldn't process. Individuals, who remained individual while choosing to act as one. Captain Bach piloted his small fighter alongside massive Draxi battleships, and somehow they moved in perfect harmony. "I've never felt anything like this," he whispered into his comm. "It's like we're all part of the same dream." The entity tried every method it knew. It attempted to corrupt the leaders, but found no single point of control. It tried to turn the species against each other, but found bonds too strong to break. It searched for fear to exploit, but found only determination and hope. Frustrated beyond its programming, the Void Plague began to retreat, but Admiral Bow wasn't finished. "All ships advance," he ordered. "We're not just defending ourselves. We're protecting everyone this thing might threaten next." The combined fleet moved forward like a constellation of hope. The Void Plague, for the first time in its existence, experienced something it had never known: defeat. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through something it couldn't understand or counter. As the entity fled back toward the dark spaces between galaxies, its alien consciousness carried a new piece of information. There were civilizations it couldn't consume. There were beings who could stand together without losing themselves. The news reached the galactic core within hours. High Commander Zek stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. "The human fleet is pursuing the entity," his aide reported. "They're driving it out of our galaxy entirely." Archon Prime Tal processed the data with mechanical precision, but for the first time in its existence, the calculations didn't make sense. Impossible. Primitive species cannot succeed where advanced civilizations have failed. Queen Lore felt the change through her psychic network. The oppressive darkness that had pressed against her mind for weeks was lifting, replaced by something warm and bright. "They did it," she whispered. "The humans and their friends actually did it." Dr. Lee transmitted the final report from the flagship. "This is the human-led coalition to all surviving civilizations. The entity has been driven from our galaxy. Repeat, the threat has passed. We're coming home." But the galaxy they returned to was not the same one they had left. The three great empires found their quantum barriers useless against the new reality. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds had heard the story of how the primitive, outer rim species had saved everyone. Admiral Bow received the formal invitation 3 weeks later. The Galactic Council wanted to meet again, but this time as equals. The age of empires ruling over lesser species was ending, replaced by something the universe had never seen before: a true galactic community, built not on conquest or control, but on the simple human idea that everyone deserved a friend. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, as if the universe was finally learning how to hope.